Hello everyone! In today's video, we're going to look at a beautiful game by the fourth world champion Alexander Alekhine, played in 1908 against the chess player named Bardeleben. Alekhine had the black pieces. His opponent started with e4 and black replied with e5. White attacks the pawn and black defends it with d6. This is the Philidor defense, which isn't very popular nowadays because of the passive position it gives black. With d4, white takes control of the center. Black reinforces the central square on e5. White develops the bishop to the a2 g8 diagonal, putting unpleasant pressure on the f7 square. Because of this, black can't develop comfortably. After knight to f6, there would follow knight to g5 with threats against f7. That's why black first plays c6, controlling the g5 square. White exchanges on e5 and then develops the bishop with bishop to e3, preventing the black dark-squared bishop from coming out to c5. In this case, mass exchanges would follow and black would lose a pawn on e5 or on f7.
Another possible continuation here is short castling, forcing black to make a decision. If black plays bishop to e7, then white has the strong move knight to g5. The threat against the f7 square forces black to defend. And if black captures on g5, then comes the combination queen to h5, with white threatening checkmate and rejoining the piece on g5. As a result, white ends up with the advantage of the two bishops and the initiative. But in the game, after bishop to e3, Alekhine plays bishop to e7, not rushing to develop the knight. Then after knight to c3, he additionally defends the pawn on c7, preparing to transfer the knight, for example, to c5 and activate the light-squared bishop. White grabs space on the queen side, but black responds with knight to c5, targeting the weakened squares f4 and d4 from the e6 square. White pushes forward sharply with b4, but this move seriously weakens the queen side. A calmer option was simply knight to g5, again putting pressure on f7. If black defends with knight to a6, then after h3, the knight stands awkwardly and white can castle and prepare an attack on the king side. However, in the game after b4, black retreats with knight to e6, attacking the pawn on b4. Bardeleben defends the pawn with rook to b1, while black continues development and prepares to castle. Castling follows on both sides. White castles, black castles. Then comes the strange move knight to e1 by white. It's hard to explain what exactly white intended, maybe to play f3 to strengthen the center? But in any case, the knight on e1 blocks the connection of the heavy pieces, and this does not improve Bardeleben's position. A better idea would have been queen to c1, freeing the d-file for the rook. After the game moved knight to e1, black strikes with b5. White apparently feared capturing on b5 because two pieces would become loose on the c-file. Instead, white retreated with bishop to d3. Now Alexander Alekhine seizes the initiative on the queen side with the powerful move a5, a beautiful and combinational thrust.
And if white now captures on a5, then black can recapture with the queen, attacking the knight and at the same time putting pressure on the a4 pawn. After the knight retreats, white would be down a pawn and facing a difficult position. In the game, however, white played a takes b5. Black, in between, captured on b4, attacking the knight. If white retreats with the knight, then black can take on b5, and after white recaptures with the bishop, black plays rook to d8, attacking the queen. After bishop to d3 as a block, black captures the pawn on e4 using the pin along the file. This leaves black with an extra pawn and all the chances for victory. So apparently Bardeleben was forced to play b6, an intermediate move attacking the queen. After the queen retreats to b7, white manages to save the attack knight. Black then plays c5, defending the pawn, and threatening to capture on e6. But white finds a good reply with c3, undermining the d4 pawn with the idea of isolating it and later trying to win it. Here, it's not profitable for black to take on e4 because white can capture on b4 and then play knight to c2. Now the pawn on b4 becomes weak and could be lost.
So Alekhine played bishop to d7, connecting the rooks and developing another piece. White captured on b4 and black recaptured on b4 with the pawn. White then defended the attacked pawn on e4 with the knight. Black continued with knight to c5, attacking two pawns at once, on b6 and on e4. Bardeleben found an interesting resource with bishop to d3. The point is that now it's dangerous for black to capture on b6 with the queen because of the reply knight to d3, creating a very unpleasant pin along the diagonal. So, Alekhine instead captured the pawn on e4. After the exchange on e4, white played bishop to d5. Black was forced to block only with the bishop, and after a series of trades on c6 followed by queen to h5, Alekhine played knight to c3, attacking the rook.
If white plays rook to c1, black has a forced way to win the exchange. First, pawn to g6, and after the queen retreats, pawn to f5. The queen is tied down to defending the e2 square. But after the queen moves to f3, black replies with pawn to e4, creating a fork and winning the exchange. And, with it, the game. That's why white played rook to b2, moving the rook out of danger.
Alekhine then shifted the queen to b5. Bardeleben played knight to f3. But even here, after the jump knight to e2, after the king moves, knight to g3 follows, winning the exchange. That's why Bardeleben decided to immediately capture the rook on f2. Black gained the exchange, but white pinned his hopes on the strong passed pawn on the b file. Black attacked the queen, and after it retreated, pushed pawn to b3, creating a dangerous passed pawn of their own, just steps away from promotion. White responded with bishop to f4, but black answered with rook to e8. And now, after white advanced pawn to b7, I suggest you pause the video now and try to find Alekhine's winning combination yourself. The solution begins with a stunning queen sacrifice. Queen takes f1. The king is forced to capture the queen. Then comes check, and the only defense is to block with the bishop. There is no other way. On knight to e1, it's immediate checkmate. And if bishop to c1, then black plays pawn to b2, and white was forced to resign. On the next move, black will promote the pawn to a queen and gain an overwhelming material advantage. So, on move 33, Kurt Bardeleben admitted defeat against the 15-year-old Alexander Alekhine, who had just delivered a brilliant combinational masterpiece. That's it for today's game. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.